Mixed martial arts, MMA, is a combination of fighting styles on a caged platform. The death of a mixed martial arts fighter on Monday, which is the second fatality in the US since November 2007, has renewed concerns about safety. Mixed martial arts is illegal in New York, but legal in 44 US states. I spoke to New York Assemblyman Bob Reilly. He's opposed to legalization. Gareth A. Davis is the Telegraph newspaper's boxing and MMA correspondent. He explained the basics.
It's a combination sport, a combination combat sport involving several martial arts disciplines, 5 of them Olympic: judo, taekwondo, wrestling, boxing, and Muay Thai kickboxing. It's a very visceral, a very powerful, very brutal sport. And you can win on points, you can win by technical knockout or stoppage, or by grappling and choke holds, and it's obviously refereed, and it's generally over 3 5-minute rounds.
Congressman Reilly, it may be, as Gareth says, it may be brutal, but so's boxing. What's to stop people, if they are properly trained, making this a real sport with, yes, risk, but nothing exceptional?
Well, I often make the comparison between amateur boxing and professional boxing. And the brutality of boxing, I don't know as if professional boxing, were up for legalization now. I doubt if people would legalize it. But what is admitted by almost everyone, that this is a brutal sport. And in the U.S. anyway, we are trying to combat brutality in our schools. We just passed legislation against bullying in schools. We have a huge problem of domestic violence. We have a huge problem of inner-city kids, especially, with guns and violence. Violence begets violence. And to us, we can't imagine putting people in a cage to fight, sometimes literally to death, because a fighter tragically was killed a week ago in South Carolina. To put 2 men in a cage or 2 women in a cage and let them fight until one is dead is not something for a civilized society.
I'd like to break in there and just make 2 points. There was a death last week. It's only the second death ever in MMA. And I actually got a statement this morning from the guy who died's family. His name was Michael Tree Kirkham. He was a talented musician and an artist and a mixed martial artist. And his parents specifically sent a message out, and I want to read this out. He was following his dream. We hope that this does not become an argument for trying to ban a sport that Michael loved. He would not have wanted his name used for that purpose. But also, my experience is the raising of guns and knives and arms by young people is down to fear generally. And my experience I've been around combat sports for a long time in my career. When people are trained in a martial art, a mixed martial art in boxing, they tend to be more disciplined in their lives.
Well, that may be okay for them, but what about the Assemblyman's point that giving children, a generation of children, heroes whose skill is to get in a cage and be violent, that doesn't sound good.
They do it in a certain environment that's controlled and regulated. There is a place for all things. You could say rugby's brutal and violent. After the whistle, at the end of a rugby game, people go and have a drink together. It's a tradition. It's the same in mixed martial arts. That's my experience of it. I don't disagree with Mr. Reilly's view that he doesn't personally like the sport. That's his choice. But there are former Olympians involved in this sport. There are former servicemen. 80% of the athletes in the UFC, because they are athletes, are college educated. We're not dealing with drunken thugs. We're dealing with top level professional athletes. The guys in the UFC are the equivalent of Champions League footballers in football. It's that kind of level, and that's what I'm reporting on.
Assemblyman, just to finish with, do you think that better regulation, you might be able to achieve that? If 44 states have approved this, it doesn't sound like you're going to be able to ban it, at least not across the U.S.
People have told me that in New York State we wouldn't be able to ban it for the last 3 years, and it's still banned.
But would you accept greater regulation?
Well, not regulation. I would accept changes in rules.
That's the New York Assemblyman Bob Reilly, opposed to legalizing mixed martial arts, and Gareth A. Davis from the Telegraph newspaper in the UK. He's obviously a big fan. That's also something to discuss. You've been listening to World Update from London. Join us again if you can at the same time tomorrow.